Hello and welcome to Estate Planning for Divorced Individuals. My name is Andrew Gilliland. I'm an attorney with Gilliland Law, a boutique law firm focusing in on estate planning, estate administration, and probate. This is a picture of me, and just to let you know, I do love what I do. I do enjoy having the opportunity to work with individuals to kind of make sure their plan fits them, and also to help them avoid losing what they've worked hard for to somebody else, or trying to keep their family from fighting. And there's a couple different ways that you could lose what you have, and oftentimes, this is what I've seen a lot of over the last several years, is you'll get a caretaker at the end of their life. Maybe they know that caretaker from a service, maybe it's a neighbor, maybe it is someone they know from church, and then that individual will take advantage of you or your loved one as they become older and get them to sign things away, and sometimes outright get them to transfer assets. It's not uncommon to have financial elder abuse claims levied against these type of individuals, but then you're just sort of chasing the money, as it were. And then with destroying the family, that's always kind of critical, because when you think about it, oftentimes probate ends up being really just kind of like, hashing out family stuff in court. It's a little bit like, a divorce or family law, where it can be very personal, very dirty, and just not somewhere you want to be. I mean, the good news is through proper estate planning, you can get past it. And in this presentation, we're going to look at just a few things you can do when there's a divorce. So when you think of a divorce, oftentimes we think of a new start. A divorce can be a long and expensive process, and once the decree is signed, most people are very relieved. You think your work is done, and that's it. But really, it's not. There are a few things to review before you consider the divorce process to be over. One of the first things is going to be life insurance. What will happen? Well, let's just sort of look at this. So the headline is what will happen if you do nothing, but this is your typical scenario. During your marriage, you purchase a life insurance policy. You have a beneficiary and a contingent beneficiary. It's a standard for all policies. Typically, you're going to name your spouse as the beneficiary, right? So when you get divorced, now your spouse isn't there. And you say, okay, well, what happens then? If you do not change it, you die, guess what? Your spouse gets everything. So you say, all right then, what if, man, this is just slides to show that this is the insurance company. They look at it, and there's your ex-spouse who gets all the money. Okay. And then you say, well, what if I name a minor child, like my child, instead of my spouse? Now that we're divorced, I'm going to name the minor child. Well, let's just walk through this scenario and see how it could potentially play out. So here you go again. Instead of your ex-spouse, now you've named the minor child as the primary beneficiary. You pass, and what happens? The insurance company looks to read the contract. It's your minor child, but guess what? The minor child can't get at this money. It doesn't go to the minor child. The insurance company, what they will do is they will throw it into probate court to determine who will be the guardian for that minor child's money, or the guardian of the estate of the minor child. And without any direction, here's what's going to happen. The probate court then will look back to, that's right, your ex-spouse, assuming that they will be the individual who will take care of the minor child and work in that minor child's best interest. So again, your ex-spouse will be the one handling your money, so that you would get from your life insurance policy. All right, so what will happen with proper estate planning? This is kind of how we get out of it, around this. Okay, so with proper estate planning, once the divorce is finalized, you schedule an appointment with me, your estate planning attorney, and develop a plan to protect this large sum of money for the benefit of your minor child. You have a trust established for the benefit of the minor child that will be funded by the proceeds from your life insurance policy. This trust will name a trustee that you pick, and not the probate court, which I'm going to bet is probably not going to be your ex-spouse, to manage the funds and instructions on how the money is to be used. This way, you are taking control of how the funds will be used, and it won't be left to your ex-spouse. So then now let's see how this plays out. Okay, you have a trust established. We just did that. You changed the beneficiary on the life insurance policy to the name of your trust. You pass away, the life insurance policy company now looks at it and says, okay, who's the beneficiary? It is now the trust. So it pays out the funds to the trust, and it's fairly straightforward at this point. The life insurance company pays it, the trustee manages the funds on behalf of the child, and there you go. So what you're doing here is you're accomplishing exactly what you wanted to accomplish in the first place, which is not leave the money to your ex-spouse so they can determine what it is, and then leaving the money for the benefit of your minor child. You know, retirement accounts can be very, very similar. So what will happen if you do nothing? So here we go again. Same idea. Client, spouse, retirement account, beneficiary. Typically, you're going to name your spouse as the beneficiary. You and your spouse get divorced. Now what happens if you do nothing? There you are. You die. State law says you're going to look at the beneficiary. And that beneficiary is going to be under state law. You'll look at the contingent beneficiary if there's a divorce. I'm sorry, I should be clear with what I was saying there. You'll look at the contingent beneficiary, right? Under federal law, it'll go to whoever is listed on as your primary beneficiary. So what will happen if you do nothing? Well, it's really up in the air, right? Conflict between state and federal law there, and that's never a good place to be. You don't want to leave that up to chance. All right, so what will happen if you name your minor child as a beneficiary? So let's look at this scenario as well. So you name them as the beneficiary, you pass away, the plan administrator references the designation, your beneficiary designation, and notice that he or she is a minor. Because a minor, again, we go back into probate court. The probate court must appoint a guardian of the estate. Guess who that guardian will likely be? Your ex-spouse. So what will happen then? So how do you get around this problem of it always going back to your ex-spouse? So with proper estate planning, once it's finalized, again, you schedule an appointment with me or an estate planning attorney and develop a plan to protect this large sum of money for the benefit of your minor child. So again, you have a trust. The trust is named as the beneficiary designation. You pass away. The plan administrator comes out, reads it, and says, oh, it goes to the trust. The trustee, your successor trustee, takes over and runs it in accordance with the trust. Therefore, your minor child is benefited. You do not have to deal with your ex-spouse or leave it into their hands. All right, so child support. So if you have minor children, chances are the topic of child support is addressed in your divorce decree. It's typically going to be in there. If you are the payor spouse, there are some things you need to consider when negotiating the payment of the child support. What will happen if you die before the child turns 18? Sometimes it could be a lump sum, right? Payor spouse, pay to the payee, and then to the minor child, right? Sort of this circular hope, again, that the payee spouse is going to get a bunch of money and hold on to it for the minor child. Okay, and I like this animation because it shows you as kind of being sad. You're sad that, well, obviously you have passed, but you're also sad that it's going to go to your ex-spouse, and they're very happy because they just got a lump sum, and your minor child over here is also a little bit sad because there's you just don't know. Your payee spouse is overpaid. Your minor child may or may not see that. They could get a new spouse, and voila. Now your minor child could entirely be out of the scenario with your ex-spouse and new spouse taking advantage of it. So purchasing life insurance, let's talk about this, all right? Purchasing a life insurance policy on the life of the payor spouse to cover child support, should he or she die before the minor child turns 18, can help eliminate the uncertainty of the funds, but it also raises a debate as to who is the owner, who the owner is ultimately going to be, right? So you would look at it, you would name, there's you, the payor spouse, so you're going to want to be the owner since he or she is the one, since you're the one making the monthly payment until the child turns 18. You may have the option to purchase or continue this policy and change the beneficiary at that time, therefore not losing your investment. There's your payee spouse wants to be the owner to ensure that the policy remains in effect and that the beneficiary does not get changed. So again, we have this tug of war. You, the payor spouse, right? You're getting divorced. You want to own it so you can reap the full benefit. Your ex-spouse would want to own it so then they could control it and make sure the beneficiary does not get changed. All right, so let's talk about ex-spouse as a beneficiary of life insurance. So there you are, the payer spouse. The ex-spouse is there, and this is to cover the child support payment. You have the payee spouse, that's who it is. You pass away, and they look at it and say, who's the beneficiary? It is going to be the payee spouse. Money is now exposed to the payee spouse creditors and can be shared with a new spouse. If payee spouse remarries and then dies, new spouse may receive all of the money, which is entirely not what you're trying to accomplish here. So again, just naming the payee spouse in that divorce is not going to be good enough. We need to do something else here. All right, so the trust as the beneficiary of life insurance. So here we have you, there you are, you're the payor spouse of the child support. There's the trust. You name the trust, and the trust empowers the trustee to step into the payor spouse's shoes with respect to the divorce and child support obligation should the payor spouse die. Okay, the trust is named as the beneficiary of the life insurance policy. The payor spouse dies, the insurance company is then going to look at the policy and says, okay, well, it's the name of the trust. It goes to the trustee. Using the proceeds, the trustee continues to make the agreed upon child support payments until the child reaches 18. Once the child support obligation is met, trustee is able to distribute the remainder of the trust according to the terms. And there we go. So yeah, the trust, the trustee makes the payments from the trust. The payee spouse is happy, and I always like this because everybody's happy in this animation. All right. So that's really sort of the ideas. As you can see, what we're really trying to get at is the best way to handle sort of this post-divorce when there's minor children involved is not to just name the minor children outright, because for the life insurance or for a retirement plan, because they're minors. The plan administrator or the payee will then have to go to probate court, which will likely then end up appointing your ex-spouse. If we have trust to handle these plus your child support obligation, you can see how that would protect then your ability to make sure the funds get to the right individual and don't end up in your ex-spouse's creditors, or don't end up to your ex-spouse's new spouse. All right, so here's just sort of my contact information. You can email me at andrew@gillalandlaw.com. You can go to my website at www.gillaland.com, and we do a free 30-minute consultation. So if you have any questions as well, feel free to email me, and I'll do my best to answer them without creating the attorney-client relationship, because that's means I owe you all my ethical obligations. That's always what we lawyers worry about in many ways. But thank you for listening. I do believe that if you're going through a divorce process, these are absolutely things you need to take care of. Family law can be brutal and ugly, and sometimes by the end of it, you're just tired of paying lawyers. But these 3 simple things we can do through creating trust for child support, creating trust for life insurance, and creating trust for retirement plans can really protect your children and provide you with comfort that you have done everything that you need to do.